I'd like to get my money out of it. Kody definitely holds the upper hand. Like, nothing can happen unless Kody wants to take action because his name is on all of the properties.
A husband who's totally supportive of what I'm doing and totally my cheerleader. That's what I see.
I would have sold it by now, but I have to wait. I'm waiting on him to decide he wants to get something moving.
I don't know what Kody's end game is here. Is he trying to play a game with us so we just get so tired of it that we're like, we just dump it? It's like, fine, you have it.
I would really like to make sure that this is done fair because you definitely are in the worst position as far as if he forces the sale.
What if the man who preached family unity was the one who dismantled it behind closed doors? What if the receipts, the silence, and the sorrow weren't just signs of dysfunction, but evidence of something darker? Today, we're peeling back the curtain on the financial lies, emotional gaslighting, and the final betrayal that forced the Brown family to implode. From secret accounts to courtroom reckoning, this isn't just family drama, this is collapse. Hey homies, I'm Amin, and this is TLC Soapbox. Let's get into it. They always claimed the money was separate, that each wife managed her own finances, that there was respect, independence, privacy. But behind closed doors, that illusion shattered. It shattered the moment Mary, once the dutiful, compliant wife, was forced to sit across from Kody and Robin like a defendant in a courtroom, forced not just to defend herself, but to prove she had contributed, with receipts, with an accountant, with records so cold and clinical, they stripped her dignity bare. Robin didn't have to do that. Robin never had to. She was already absolved, always exempt. No one ever asked her to produce evidence, because in this twisted ecosystem, Robin wasn't a wife. She was the auditor, the co-CEO, the untouchable. What began as a plural family became a regime. Kody, posturing as patriarch, had long found ways to divide and conquer. Financial loyalty became a weapon, and questioning Robin was treason. When Mary brought her accountant, it wasn't just to settle a dispute. It was an act of desperation, a plea to be seen, to be treated with basic fairness. The irony? She had nothing to hide. She paid her dues. She paid everyone's dues. And yet, there she sat, while the one woman whose contributions were always the vaguest, the most obscured, the most hidden, stood by as judge and jury. That moment, that cold interrogation, wasn't about money. It was about control. Gaslighting someone into justifying their worth while you hide your own tracks is abuse masquerading as leadership. Kody played the overseer, Robin played innocent, and Mary, loyal, bruised, tired, played along. Because what choice did she have? The financial illusion wasn't just a lie, it was a system. And once you see the system for what it is, you can't unsee the silence that protects it. He always said Janelle left him with a financial mess, that she spent recklessly, mismanaged the funds, didn't think about the future. But behind that excuse was something far more calculated: deflection. Kody's pattern of blaming Janelle wasn't rooted in truth, but in strategy. The moment she started questioning where the money was going, the moment she asked for clarity, for shared plans, for fairness, she became the problem. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she was no longer controllable. And nothing terrifies Kody more than a woman who stops nodding yes. He cast Janelle as irresponsible to justify locking her out. During the pandemic, when financial stress hit every corner of the family, Kody didn't gather everyone together. He stopped sharing statements. He siloed the funds. He chose silence over transparency, secrecy over unity. Janelle, long believed to be the one managing the family's budget, suddenly found herself cut off. No access, no information, no say. And worse, she realized that no one else seemed to know either. Robin wasn't just involved. She was absorbing control, sliding into a role that none of the others consented to, and certainly didn't trust. By the time Janelle pieced together the truth, the damage had been done. Her house plans were stalled, her equity vanished, and Kody stood back, shrugging like it was all her fault. The mess he blamed her for was the one he orchestrated, one that ensured Robin stayed protected while the rest were left scrambling. What Kody called mismanagement was actually resistance. Janelle dared to hold him accountable, and in response, he built a narrative where her defiance was dangerous. But the truth is simpler. Janelle didn't fail the family, she simply stopped playing by the rules Kody rewrote behind closed doors, and that, to him, was unforgivable. For years, Robin maintained a perfect act, aloof from the drama, supposedly unaware of the deeper conflicts, claiming innocence whenever things got messy. But behind that polished exterior was a woman who knew far more than she let on. She wasn't just Kody's favorite. She was his co-conspirator, the financial gatekeeper who never had to open her own books. While Mary was dragged to the table and Janelle was pushed out of decision-making, Robin floated in a cloud of plausible deniability, always involved when there was something to gain, always absent when accountability was required. She claimed she didn't know how the other wives handled their money, that she respected their independence. But when it came time to challenge Mary's financial input, there she was, present, vocal, and demanding proof. Robin's participation in that moment revealed everything. She wasn't neutral. She wasn't unaware. She was selectively engaged, stepping in only when it benefited her narrative or protected her assets. It was never about fairness. It was about control. And Robin played the long game. Her strategy worked because it was quiet. While the others clashed openly, Christine walking out, Janelle demanding answers, Robin stayed calm, unbothered, even maternal. She used tears when necessary, silence when convenient, and loyalty as currency. By keeping herself in Kody's corner, she secured more than affection. She secured leverage. When money flowed, it flowed her way. When criticism rose, she faded into the background. And the most unsettling part? She never had to defend herself the way Mary did. She never faced scrutiny. No accountant, no receipts. Just trust, unearned, unchallenged, and reinforced by Kody at every turn. Robin didn't need to steal power. She was handed it, wrapped in victimhood and sealed with Kody's blind devotion, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Kody's illusion of leadership always hinged on his ability to control the narrative, especially when it came to money. He claimed to be the provider, the one managing chaos with spreadsheets and sacrifice. But behind the scenes, it was chaos he engineered. Every time he pointed fingers at Janelle for the so-called financial mess, he carefully omitted the years she spent juggling bills, raising kids, and covering gaps he conveniently ignored. It wasn't leadership. It was strategic blame. Kody's favorite tactic was confusion. Blur the lines, keep the wives guessing. Say it's family money one day and your responsibility the next. For Janelle, who believed in the collective, who poured her income into homes and investments for the group, the betrayal ran deep. She had trusted the system he built, only to realize it was always tilted in his favor. When he accused her of mismanaging funds, it wasn't just insulting. It was projection. He was the one buying trucks, trailers, and designer watches while she was rationing utilities and stretching groceries for 6 kids. The double standard was staggering. Janelle's careful budgeting was labeled irresponsible, while Kody's big-ticket splurges were rebranded as providing. He mocked the women for seeking financial clarity, painting himself as the overwhelmed husband burdened by their needs. But the truth was simpler and uglier. Kody never wanted shared responsibility. He wanted control without accountability. The real fracture didn't come from the money itself. It came from the realization that the rules were never meant to be fair. Janelle had played the long game, believing that loyalty and hard work would eventually be rewarded. Instead, she found herself locked out of the finances, of decision-making, of the future she thought she was building. And Kody? He just kept rewriting history, one accusation at a time, hoping no one would ever add up the numbers. The moment Robin entered the family, the financial tides shifted, and not by accident. From the very beginning, Robin's presence was wrapped in quiet contradictions. She claimed innocence about the other wives' finances, pretended to be the newcomer just trying to fit in, and insisted she stayed out of the money. But as the years passed, it became impossible to ignore. Robin wasn't just passively benefiting, she was strategically positioning herself at the center of the family's wealth. Before she even legally joined the Brown household, Robin had debt. A lot of it. And yet, when she arrived, she didn't step in cautiously. She came with demands: a legal marriage, a new home, her own bank account, and eventually joint ownership of assets that weren't hers to begin with. Kody backed her at every step, shifting titles and funds while the other wives, who had built the family from scratch, watched in stunned silence. What made it worse was Robin's uncanny ability to toggle between helpless and calculating. One moment, she was teary-eyed, overwhelmed, claiming she didn't know how anything worked. The next, she was weighing in on property divisions and trust allocations with surgical precision. The emotional manipulation was obvious, especially to Christine and Janelle. They'd spent years grinding it out, making do, sacrificing for the whole. And now, here was someone new, skipping the struggle and cashing the check. Robin's presence exposed something the other wives had long refused to see, that Kody's rules weren't universal, they were adjustable. And they bent most easily for the wife who never questioned him, who echoed his delusions, and who knew how to play fragile when it mattered most. By the time Mary was forced to bring in an accountant to prove her worth, Robin didn't need receipts. She had Kody, and in this family, that was worth more than any contribution ever made. Kody's spiral into blame wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling, wrapped in denial, layered with rage, and always redirected outward. The cracks had long been visible, but after Christine and Janelle finally walked away, those cracks became canyons. And in the aftermath, Kody did what he always does when he loses control. He pointed fingers. First at Christine, then at Janelle, then at the kids. But eventually, when the walls truly started to close in, he turned to the one person no one expected, Robin. In a rare private moment, one reportedly overheard and whispered about, but never shown on camera, Kody allegedly snapped. The financial mess he once tried to pin on Janelle suddenly had a new villain. She manipulated me, he said. Not about Christine, not about Mary, about Robin, the wife he once praised as loyal and perfect, the one he legally married, the one he built everything around. For years, Kody had sheltered Robin from criticism, even as she drained the family's resources with expensive homes, countless toys for the kids, and a spending pattern that never aligned with the family's reality. But when legal filings, custody battles, and child support demands started stacking up, so did the pressure. And Kody, unable to bear the weight of his own decisions, began to resent the very woman he once weaponized. It was a twist no one saw coming. The man who abandoned his children for loyalty to one wife, now blaming that same wife for everything he lost. To outsiders, it looked like Kody was defending her. But inside the walls of their isolated fortress, his tone shifted. He was bitter, paranoid, and desperate to salvage a reputation that had already burned to the ground. And when Kody Brown feels cornered, he doesn't just lash out, he rewrites the story entirely, even if it means betraying the last ally he has left. The unraveling didn't stop at blame, it deepened into something darker, desperation disguised as control. Kody's financial downfall wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet, it was a collapse of power, ego, and the narrative he had carefully constructed for over a decade. And as court orders started locking into place, child support, parenting time, formal custody, Kody no longer had the leverage he used to lord over his wives. The law stepped in where emotional manipulation once ruled, and nothing terrifies a man like Kody more than being stripped of the ability to intimidate. For years, he threatened Christine. If she ever went after child support, he warned, he'd unleash legal hell. He'd take her for everything. Those weren't idle words. They were meant to scare her into silence. But Christine didn't flinch. She filed, she fought, and she won. Kody, forced to comply, was now legally required to pay. Paternity established, financial support determined by the court, and custody agreements locked in. No more room for negotiations behind closed doors. And here's the part. Kody can't spin. Utah law doesn't care about your spiritual hierarchy or your camera-ready charm. If you owe child support, they'll come for your paycheck. They'll garnish your wages. They'll freeze your accounts. It's not personal, it's procedural. But for someone like Kody, who built his entire identity around control, procedure feels like punishment. He's no longer the patriarch of a sprawling kingdom. He's a man under legal obligation, bound by documents instead of doctrine. And the image of Kody as the provider, the ultimate man of the house, has shattered into pieces as real as the court order taped to Christine's fridge. This wasn't just Christine's victory. It was the state saying, you don't get to walk away clean. And for the first time, Kody couldn't escape the consequences. The cracks widened into a chasm when Coyote Pass became the battlefield. For years, it had been pitched as the family's legacy, land that would one day hold homes, memories, a future. But behind the dream was a nightmare of mismanaged funds and hidden intentions. Kody treated Coyote Pass not as a shared investment, but as his private empire. Titles in his name. Financial control funneled through him. And Robin, always conveniently nearby, stood to benefit from every deal made in the shadows. Janelle had spent years believing in the vision. She poured her resources into the land, scrimped and sacrificed, even lived in an RV when others had roofs. But when it came time to build, Kody slammed the door. Suddenly, there wasn't enough money. Suddenly, it wasn't her turn. And as she questioned the delay, the truth began to emerge. Kody hadn't just neglected to allocate funds. He had rerouted them. Every dollar that should have gone toward her home had quietly disappeared into other ventures, other priorities, ones that seemed to benefit only him and Robin. Mary, cautious but loyal for years, finally stopped squinting through the fog. She too had claims on that land. She too had invested in a future that no longer included her. And when she tried to get clarity, tried to ask Kody directly, she was met with avoidance, defensiveness, and vague promises that never materialized. The betrayal was no longer emotional. It was financial, legal, strategic. And when the family realized that Coyote Pass wasn't just delayed, it was rigged, they began to push back. Not with screams, but with silence. Not with confrontation, but with disengagement. They walked away from the fantasy Kody built and left him standing on the very dirt he weaponized. In the end, Coyote Pass wasn't a symbol of unity. It was the graveyard of trust. The final fracture didn't happen with a bang. It came in the quiet aftermath of Garrison's death, when grief laid everything bare. There, in the solemn space of mourning, Kody and Robin made a fatal miscalculation. They showed up not with humility or empathy, but with entitlement. Eyes weren't just on them because of a lingering resentment. They were watching for what Kody would do now, when it truly mattered. And instead, what they saw was a man still trying to control the narrative, still making the moment about himself. The kiss between Kody and Robin at the funeral became the excuse, the public justification for why they were pushed away. But those close to the family knew better. It wasn't about affection, it was about arrogance, about the way Robin didn't bring her kids, about how Kody behaved not as a grieving father, but as someone more offended than heartbroken. He was there to defend his image, not honor his son. And when the rest of the family looked at him and saw no remorse, no accountability, no shared sorrow, they made a choice. A boundary was drawn. Janelle, already reeling from financial betrayal, wasn't going to allow Kody near Garrison's assets. As executor and sole beneficiary, she held the legal power and used it. That move wasn't just about protecting what was left behind, it was about reclaiming dignity after years of being diminished. Kody saw it as an attack, but in truth, it was the family's final act of resistance. A refusal to let grief be manipulated like everything else. The funeral didn't split the family, it revealed the split that had always been there. And when Kody and Robin were quietly asked to leave, it wasn't out of cruelty. It was closure. The family no longer needed Kody to lead. They needed him to let go. What Kody never understood, perhaps never wanted to understand, was that leadership isn't about control. It's about trust. And trust had been drained from the Brown family one silent betrayal at a time. What remained was not a brotherhood of wives or a legacy of love. It was paperwork, power plays, and a man who mistook obedience for loyalty. Kody spent years orchestrating the dynamics, whispering half-truths to one wife while ignoring another, weaponizing affection and twisting obligation into guilt. But the final blow didn't come from outside rebellion. It came from within, from wives who woke up and realized silence was no longer love. Christine left first, but she wasn't the end. She was the warning shot. Janelle followed, not with rage, but with resolve. And Mary, after years of emotional exile, finally stopped waiting for the man who only saw her when he needed receipts. Kody's world didn't collapse because of a book, a court order, or even a funeral. It collapsed because the illusion cracked and no one was willing to pretend anymore. He could spin the story any way he wanted, blame Robin's influence, or the kids' disrespect, or the stress of being the unappreciated father. But the truth was, he built a kingdom where only his voice mattered. And now, no one was listening. As for Robin, she didn't lose the family in one moment. She lost them piece by piece, every time she played dumb while holding all the cards, every time she called for grace while never giving it. Now she and Kody stand in a house full of silence and collectibles, surrounded by the wreckage of a dream that was never truly shared. And yet, the wives are not broken. They're rebuilding, separately, stronger, and for the first time, free. The real story of Sister Wives wasn't about polygamy, it was about survival. So now you've seen what really broke the Brown family, and it wasn't a kiss or a tell-all. It was years of manipulation disguised as love, control dressed up as protection, and a silence that finally got too loud to ignore. If this breakdown hit you in the gut like it did me, don't just scroll. Hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss what TLC won't show you. Drop a comment below. Whose side are you really on? I'm Amin, and this has been TLC Soapbox. Until next time, stay loud.